the man himself, David Espinosa Hall. What caught your attention today, David?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm always looking for good headlines, guys, and these next stories have caught my attention. So some athletes want to win championships, then become all-star players and date beautiful celebrities. And this guy right here is no different. He has his eyes on this lady right here. 76er center Joel Embiid wants to play in the All-Star game, and it's not for his resume, but for a date with Rihanna. So this guy tweeted out that the singer said the only way he could get a date would be to become an all-star. So Joel is putting in some work and shooting for the stars literally by asking you to vote him into the All-Star game. Now, you might remember Embiid for another reason. He and DeMarcus Cousins with the Sacramento Kings got into a back and forth. Here's that footage. This was in a game. These two exchanged butt slaps on the way up and down the floor. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see if Joel gets his date with Rihanna. And forget singing and Grammys. You might think Justin Timberlake could play in the league after seeing this next video here. Roll the clip. After Tuesday night's game between the LA Lakers and the Grizzlies from Memphis, Justin hit that half-court shot. This was at Staples Center, showing off some of his hoop skills. You can hear the crowd there in the background a little bit, people cheering as a 35-year-old singer and songwriter made not one but two half-court shots with ease, folks. Timberlake is a huge basketball fan, and he actually has ownership stake in the Memphis Grizzlies. Look at him walking back so smooth. Let's move to Saudi Arabia now, where a music video has started a huge debate. Now, this video here has more than 2 million views. This thing focuses on what women cannot do in Saudi Arabia. You see them in the video skateboarding and playing sports, and you also see them getting inside of a car with a young boy getting in behind the wheel. In Saudi Arabia, most women cannot drive or even get a driver's license. A lot of people talking about that clip. So that is what caught my attention today. And folks, feel free to weigh in on our website at king5.com, and you can even tweet me at @DEspinosahall. Mark and Amanda, back to you.
I know you're a huge basketball fan, so I understand those two clips. I like what you're throwing out.
They got your attention?
You know, David, back in the day, you could win a Buick at a Sonics game if you made that. They would draw a name out, and if you made that half-court shot, you'd win a Buick.
That's pretty cool, and I know Timberlake can afford a couple of Buicks.
Yeah, more than a couple.
Yeah.
All right, David, thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Minneapolis, Minnesota, this one's for you.
Okay, a lot of people are on the fence about this particular moment here. Justin Timberlake's halftime performance last night is getting some tough criticism. The Timberlake show included this tribute to music great and music icon Prince, who's from Minneapolis. I want you to head to king5.com/vote now, and I want you to rate JT's halftime performance on a 5-star scale. So while you're voting, let me break down this controversy. Walk with me. First, this might be best summed up as a little bit of a misunderstanding. So TMZ referenced a Prince interview from the late 90s where Prince made it crystal clear that if he were to die, he would not want anyone using technology to create a musical moment or a hologram of him. And that's basically what Timberlake did yesterday. Now, Prince was no stranger to performing in Super Bowls. You're looking at his performance. This was back in 2007. Comedian Sinbad explained the second part of this controversy. So Sinbad mentioned when Timberlake came out with his smash hit Sexy Back, we all heard it, right? Prince's response was, oh, sexy never left, as in Prince has always been in the business of making sexy music.
It's a moment for me, if I'm being quite honest, because he's always been the pinnacle of musicianship for me.
So when I was watching that interview, I was kind of scratching my head too. What makes this a bit more confusing is that last night Timberlake did that interview with Jimmy Fallon, and he mentioned that Prince was his musical hero. He looked up to him. So if that's true, it makes you wonder why Timberlake would go against Prince's wishes in regards to using Prince's image in that hologram. Well, Jordan Wilkerson and we spoke about JT's halftime performance. You can find it on my Facebook and Twitter pages. Just search my name, David Espinosa Hall.
I didn't know the backstory, but now that I know, it does sort of change your opinion about the halftime performance. But we asked you what you thought about it. So we said on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate Justin Timberlake's Super Bowl halftime performance? Right now, you've got it rated at about a 2.9. So we're going to keep this up. We thank you for weighing in.
Yeah. Welcome back. Okay, so the CEO of Miss America has been suspended for the way he talked about the contestants in emails over the past few years. The Huffington Post revealed them late last night. Now, inside some of these emails, the Post says Sam Haskell shames women for their weight, criticizes their past relationships, and laughs when colleagues refer to them using extremely offensive language. NBC News has reached out to the Miss America organization and Haskell for a comment, and so far haven't heard back. Now, I put a call into Miss Washington 2012, Mandy Schendel, who also competed and placed in the top 10 in Miss America. This was back in 2013, and she joins us now to speak about this topic. So, Mandy, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
First question for you. This story involves two people you know closely, Miss America CEO Sam Haskell for allegedly sending these emails, and also Mallory Hagan, who was crowned Miss America back in 2013. So she was one of Haskell's targets. What's your reaction to all of this?
I am disgusted by it. There's no better word to use. Mallory, like you said, she was the Miss America who won the year that I competed. And as a class, we stand behind who she is as a person. She's brilliant and beautiful. And for anyone to make derogatory terms about her as a person is gross. But more than that, women in general who are trying to be empowered as women, there's no room for that in society at all.
I think that's what's most shocking about that, is that a program that purports to support women has someone in upper management basically bad-mouthing them.
Absolutely, and the organization does amazing things. There's so much empowerment that occurs through competing in pageantry, but to have a man running an organization that's about women empowerment, I think there's enough women in the world that we could find who could run this organization smashingly.
Yeah, talk to me about that, because we were speaking about this earlier. Your thoughts on that, women in leadership roles?
I think there's such a valuable space that's really untapped right now. We have women who, yes, are doctors and lawyers and attorneys, but there is still that gap of women who are really not able to reach that ceiling that some men are. And there's a space that's going to happen. And hopefully this is a good turning point for the Miss America organization, that they can see the talent that they currently have and implement that at the executive level.
One thing that surprised me also was that this was common knowledge, it seemed. Many women knew about what was happening. Why didn't we hear about it earlier?
Because there was so much fear involved. Mallory is the best example. She tried to speak out early into her year. We had conversations as a class and we knew what was going on, but she was blackballed time after time again with job opportunities and different opportunities she tried to go after. And so there was a fear that everything was going to be taken down as soon as you speak out, which is a terrible way to live your life.
And then really quickly, we have time for one more question. What will it take for Miss America to bounce back, in your opinion?
I think we need to restructure the board. It's not just Sam that is at fault here. It's the board for engaging in this conversation and letting it continue. So let's, from leadership at the very top, all the way down to the state and local level, let's revamp what we're doing. Let's put these women in power and make some great changes.
All right, Mandy, thank you so much for your time and your
Thanks,
insight.
Mandy.
So I want you to take a look at this H&M ad. It shows a black kid with the words, "coolest monkey in the jungle" on his chest. Now, H&M has apologized after this online ad upset a lot of people and brought this worldwide company, which is headquartered in Sweden, accusations of racism. Reps now say that they're going to change the routine for editing ads before release to prevent this mistake from happening again. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this controversy and the pain associated with a person of color being called a monkey. Many of them have said online that they plan on boycotting the company. We've seen some people even protesting outside of some H&M stores, like the situation right here in Belgium. Also, many powerful celebrities have weighed in. NBA star LeBron James tweeted out a picture of the same kid, this time, as you see, wearing a crown and minus that controversial statement. Music artists, The Weeknd and G-Eazy have come out saying in part that they are offended and will end their partnerships with the company. Now, tonight, we invited some local people in the marketing and advertising world to help us make sense of this whole situation.
Yeah, we really appreciate you both being here. Joining us right now, University of Washington marketing professor Mark Forehand, also Cal McAllister, who's the founder and CEO of Wexley School for Girls, an advertising agency in town. Thank you both. Cal, is an ad maker, you look at that ad. What was your reaction, and then what's your reaction to the backlash that followed?
Well, the backlash is predictable and understandable. It's a disaster for the company. It's a disaster that it happened at all. And certainly they're frustrated, and I think they're taking the right course. They're recycling the shirt. The product's not available. But you see something like that, and you know it's a multi-million-dollar mistake, and it just should never have happened.
Okay, you hit on a key word, mistake. Mark, why is this mistake still being made in 2018?
It's usually oversight that is just missed. So as Cal referred to, there are individuals who are in charge of trying to make sure that everything meets the standards and doesn't violate a norm that this one clearly did, and that oversight just fundamentally failed in this case.
Walk us through that process. I mean, you've worked with big companies before. Sure. There's got to be a process for vetting ads. What does that process look like?
There is. So traditionally, and I expect it to happen in this situation, there's a writer, there's an art director, they come up with a concept, they show the concept to the creative director, it goes into production. I'm surprised that this made it off the stage at all, off the photo stage. But then it gets reviewed and people approve it, and for the most part, there isn't usually a problem. And in this situation, someone just didn't raise their hand and say, we're culturally insensitive.
I'll ask this question for both of you. How much of this was done, in your opinion, for the shock value?
Well, there's an old adage that there's no such thing as bad publicity, and that's clearly false. So if you look only at the awareness of the brand and how much people notice it, recognize the name, something like this is going to add to that awareness, but it's also going to create tons of negative sentiment. So if it was done intentionally for shock value, it's a very short-term gain, because the negative reactions that you're going to get, especially when you have celebrities to start to chime in on it, is huge and would far outweigh any benefits that you would have on brand awareness.
Now, your take on the whole shock value theory, perhaps?
That's very off-brand for H&M. I would say that that is impossible that happened. That's not what they do. They're a very sensitive company generally. They're going through some growing pains as a global brand, but that's not something that they would do. Other brands might do something like that, but this is, in my opinion, clearly an accident.
Okay, what can other companies learn from this experience?
Well, they've responded very well. So they took full responsibility, they pulled the ad, they basically did a full mea culpa and admitted their error. So it is likely that it will blow over relatively quickly, but there are going to be individuals who are not going to forgive them quickly. And probably the biggest predictor of who will or who will not forgive them has to do with their prior association with H&M. So individuals who have a strong attachment to H&M, who are loyal consumers, are more likely to forgive. Those who perhaps haven't used the store or don't frequent it are much less likely to do so.
Okay, Mark and Cal, thank you both so much for your time and your insight. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Now, coming up, we're going to speak with Brie Barron about the same issue. Now, she does marketing for Seattle Chocolates, runs her own marketing firm, and also has been an H&M customer in the past. That's coming up at 9:40. We'll be right back.
We wanted to revisit this controversial and racially insensitive ad from H&M. Earlier, we were talking to a marketing professor and also the head of an ad agency.
We now want to speak with someone who runs her own marketing firm called Branding by Brie and who does the marketing for Seattle Chocolate. So, Brie Barron, thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Thank you for having me.
We want to start with this. You're an expert in the field. So, in your opinion, was this a bad mistake or something done on purpose? And either way, why?
I don't believe that H&M did this on purpose, or I should rephrase to say that I don't believe that it was malicious. What it does represent to me, though, is a lack of attention to cultural competence and social literacy and emotional intelligence in their creative process. So it really isn't about whether or not they deliberately put out a racially inappropriate image, but more so about representation in the decision-making centers of their company and why that cultural literacy is not being brought to the creative process.
At a company the size of H&M, is there an excuse for that in this day and age?
I honestly don't believe that there is. I mean, we live in a day and age when consumers are very digitally savvy, they're very culturally engaged. Corporations and small businesses all know that we have a platform to express how we feel about the brand, and we are in direct dialogue with corporations due to social media and the internet. I don't think there's any excuse to not pay careful attention to the way that the images and messages you put out are going to be received.
This next question here is sort of a two-parter. What was your reaction when you saw this ad? And then the second part of this is you told me before we started this that you were a customer of H&M. So what will that mean for you visiting the shop again in the future, if at all?
Yeah, I've definitely been a consumer of H&M. I probably won't continue to be, but it's not a difficult decision for me to make. I don't believe that H&M, from a product standpoint, occupies a particularly unique position in the market. So for consumers who are looking to shift their buying power, it's really easy to choose an alternative. And that's why the relationship between the brand and the audience is increasingly important. And so, unfortunately, I wasn't really shocked to see the image itself. I was more so shocked to hear that corporations are still saying that this is an oversight or a mistake. You would think that they would be so thoughtful about that this day and age, knowing that consumers are going to address the way that they feel and immediately.
Right. I mean, customers have so many options now,
Absolutely.
right? So how does a company like H&M rehab their image? How do they build that loyalty with their customers back again?
I think that when you issue an apology, as long as a company is acknowledging that they understand the mistake, and I think what's important, especially in these instances, is that it's not about hurting one individual's feelings. It's about acknowledging that there is a historical context in which this particular narrative that subjugates Black people has been perpetrated through the media and advertising, and recognizing your part in that. So I think if a company can acknowledge that they understand their mistake, and then going forward be careful to create ad campaigns that actually resonate with their audience, that it's pretty easy to reverse this. But consumers are going to continue asking detailed questions about the companies we support.
Now, we've seen a lot of people talking about this online. You're in the field, you're in the know. You talk to other marketers, other branders, other advertisers. What are they saying about this ad?
I think that it comes as no shock because there are really so many major companies that have come under fire lately for their tone-deaf advertising. And so I think what it does do is it raises a conversation about how consumers are empowered to hold companies accountable. And I think that it challenges those companies to rethink the way that they communicate and make sure that you not only have representation, but cultural competence in the creative process and a part of the values of the company itself.
Brie Barron, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
We appreciate the insight.
Thanks.
He's one of the NBA's greatest players, but he's also one of the major voices when it comes to social injustices. I'm talking about NBA legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I had the chance to speak with him when he was here in town to speak at the annual gala for the King County Public Library Foundation. The athlete who was so vocal on the court is now weighing in on the state of our country.
Things are cyclical, and every now and then we have a negative cycle. Things definitely aren't as bad as they were. Okay, in the 1920s, Black Americans got lynched on a regular basis. It's not happening now. Okay, so there have been changes positively. There are a lot of laws now that enable people to fight discrimination with the law on their side. This is a crucial change. It has made a difference. But every now and then there's some backsliding, and I think that's we're in that period now, and it's very unfortunate.
For decades, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has been a voice for those seeking social equality, especially in the civil rights movement. When it comes to the current political climate, he says there seems to be more racial tension these days as opposed to 10 to 15 years ago. For example, the Charlottesville, Virginia riots back in 2017, officer-involved shootings involving people of color, and discussions surrounding a border wall.
We have to deal with this. It's crucial, but we have the means and the will to overcome it. That's what Dr. King was all about. So we can't forget that. You know, we have to understand that it's not always going to be an easy path to get to where we want to go.
Abdul-Jabbar was born in the late 40s. He's dealt with racism throughout his life. He lived through the height of the civil rights movement. He was devastated when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated and chose in part to boycott the Olympics in the late 60s because of that.
I think Dr. King would have reminded us that he left us a few things to do. He left us some homework, some of the things that we had to deal with in order to really realize all of the fruits of the civil rights movement. And that one of the main things was economic empowerment in minority communities. That goes a long way to enabling minorities to catch up education-wise, to catch up financially, and be able to contribute to this great democracy that we have.
And Abdul-Jabbar has been fighting hard for equality for everyone. He's been educating, empowering, and encouraging people to love and respect one another.
I think the solution comes when Americans talk to each other. You know, we put a guy on the moon. You know, we can do a lot of stuff. So if we talk to each other about this problem and are honest about it and really want to change it, it'll happen. It's not easy, but it's accomplishable.
In his playing days, he accomplished a lot with his devastating yet graceful skyhook. Those days are over with, but he's still dishing out assists to anyone who will receive his message and listen.
My message for them is knowledge is power. Become as powerful as you can and go out and change the world to make it a better place.
Now, in his lifetime, Abdul-Jabbar has seen it all, and he says the main thing we should all do is love and respect each other. We follow that, the world will be a better place.
Yeah, good advice. And boy, just the way that he sees history and how far we've come, and yet to see the backslide, it's just such interesting perspective.
Yeah, great perspective from him. Pleasure meeting him.
Yeah.
Many headlines came out of last night's NBA All-Star game, and I'm going to spend the next 2 minutes explaining everything that happened. And as I do that, I want you to log on to king5.com/vote now to tell us, do you think athletes should weigh in on key political issues? Yes, no, or are you indifferent? Now, last night's new format allowed superstars LeBron James and Stephen Curry to choose their own all-star teammates. And folks, it was a success with a very competitive game being played. Now, before the basketball was even bounced in this game, a lot of people were talking about this moment. So Fergie tried her own style with the national anthem, and that was the move that made some of the players laugh. As you see Curry there having a good moment there. But perhaps what has people talking the most is a recent interview with James and fellow superstar Kevin Durant, where they speak out and against President Trump.
The number one job in America, the point of person, is someone who doesn't understand the people and really don't give a about the people.
I feel like our team as a country is not ran by a great coach.
It's not even a surprise when he says something. It's not even a surprise. It's like laughable. It's like
it's laughable.
It's laughable and it's scary.
But it's also scary because I shouldn't be numb to your racist comments.
Right.
I shouldn't be numb to your behavior.
So those comments are making even more news because Fox News host Laura Ingraham decided to play one-on-one against James.
I called those remarks barely intelligible, not to mention ungrammatical. And last night, which is difficult to dispute, and the left erupted. Slate's piece was titled, "In Insulting LeBron James, Laura Ingraham proves James' point about racism." Oh, okay. It accused me of, quote, something vile and racist. Almost all the stories accused me of dog whistle commentary, and many claim my line that LeBron should shut up and dribble was racist. What? I wrote a book 15 years ago, fairly well-known, New York Times bestseller called Shut Up and Sing. And I've been using variants of that title to call out political celebrities for 15 years without regard for skin color, where you came from, what you do.
All right. After hearing those comments, James had this to say.
Well, not just shut up and dribble, because I mean too much to my two boys here, their best friend right here, my daughter that's at home, my wife, my family, and all these other kids that look up to me for inspiration and trying to find a way out. The best thing she did is gonna help me is create more awareness. So I appreciate her for even giving me even more awareness.
Now, Ingraham is now challenging James, tweeting, quote, "Hey King, come play on my court next week. You're invited on the show anytime." We'll see if James actually takes her up on that offer. Now, my main hope is this, that through their conversation, they can help bring together a divided nation. There is such thing as freedom of speech, but there is a way to do things no matter who or what you believe in. And we've been asking you to vote in our live poll to tell us if you think athletes should weigh in on political issues. And right now, the results say this. 48% of you say yes, and 45% of you say no, and about 6% of you are indifferent. And as always, we thank you all for voting. So millions of people watch the Super Bowl today, and most of us have just that, that fan's perspective. But I wanted to hear from someone who's played in the NFL and in the Super Bowl. I had the chance to speak to Lawyer Milloy, who played for the Seattle Seahawks and also the New England Patriots.
The difference between the first Super Bowl that I lost and the second Super Bowl when we had the second chance was that we were ready, mentally. Me personally, my rookie year in 1996, where I was looking at the lights, looking at the entertainers, that had nothing to do with the game. My sixth year, being more of a captain, playing a more integral, more pivotal role, I was focused more on my team, more on the game, more about execution. And I think that was the biggest difference of those two games. You really don't know how you're going to feel until you host that Lombardi Trophy. The confetti coming down in your team's colors is one thing, but holding that trophy up, it was just like all my emotions from Eastside Boys Club here in Tacoma, Washington, junior high school ball, Lincoln High School, playing at UW, and then ultimately, all my years before that in the NFL. It all led up to that moment. It just put everything in perspective, like this is what all my hard work is for.
And Milloy won his championship with the Patriots.